is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
I am now at a point where I am dreading getting this letter because every single year it's Division 4, Division 4, Division 4. The letter came. I remember getting out of that letterbox. I took it inside and I put it on the kitchen counter. I'm looking at this letter. I can't bring myself to open it. The heartbreak that I can remember feeling of what that letter was going to share and tell me was just killing me. 3 days went by. I had to convince myself we have to just rip the Band-Aid off. And I remember coming home, looking at the letter, and just thinking, I can't delay this anymore. Like, I need to know which direction I'm going.
Matt Mann is a basketball shooting coach and the founder of Skills Within Hoops. Mann's journey began in Australia, where with no formal training available, he taught himself basketball fundamentals using makeshift equipment and a relentless drive for improvement, eventually playing professionally in 5 different countries. Today, he channels his experiences into a thriving platform that transforms players into confident, consistent, and strategic scorers. His training is backed by mentorship from the NBA's top skills trainer Drew Hanlon and shooting expert John Townsend. Hey, Hoopheads, find the shooting machine that meets your team's exact training needs this New Year's with Dr. Dish Basketball's 2025 Super Sale. Shop now until January 31st to unlock their biggest offer ever. Buy one Dr. Dish, get one free. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hey, this is Scott Morrison, Utah Jazz assistant coach, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Grab pen and paper before you listen to this episode with Matt Mann, basketball shooting coach and founder of Skills Within Hoops. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here tonight without my co-host Jason Sunkel, but I am pleased to be joined by basketball shooting coach Matt Mann. Matt, welcome to the Hoopheads pod.
Hi, Mike. How you going, mate?
Great. Excited to have you on. Looking forward to diving into all the things that you are doing as far as training kids and helping them to become better shooters. Let's start by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the game of basketball when you were younger.
Sure. Just to start here, I just want to thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to having a chat with you. So the way that it all started for me was quite interesting. I grew up in Australia, in the south central part of Australia, in a city called Adelaide. It's a lot like Las Vegas and Phoenix. So it's lots of dry desert heat, lots of sunshine. So from about 5 or 6 years old, I was playing cricket. So you might be familiar with cricket, it's sort of like baseball. So I was playing cricket quite a lot, and I played that for basically 9 years. And the reason I was playing cricket was because my older cousin, who's about 12 years older than me, I just looked up to him like an absolute legend. And I just wanted to do anything and everything that he did because he was like the coolest guy on the planet. And I just wanted to do what he did so I could be like him. fast forward till I was, about 15 years old. So like I said, I've been playing cricket for about 9 years before this. And that was like the only sport I'd ever really done. I mean, I'd done swimming, but cricket was mainly it. Basically, it was on a Friday afternoon. One of my best friends in the second year of high school. So in Australia, we start high school from year 8. So I know in America, they sort of start year 9. In high school in Australia, we start in year 8. So this was year 9, second year of high school for me. It was Friday afternoon and we were at high school. My good friend basically came up to me at the end of high school and said, we have a game tomorrow. We've got a basketball game tomorrow and we've only got 4 players. Like some of our guys are sick and they're out and they're unavailable. Can you fill in? And I was like, man, I don't know the first thing about basketball. So if you can ask anybody else, that would be great. And he was literally like, Matt, I've asked everybody else. Like, you're my last resort. So I was like, gee, thanks, friend. Like, I'm your last resort. Like, thank you. But anyway, I was like, okay, you guys don't have enough numbers. So I was like, great, I'll help you out. Just don't expect very much from me. So next day comes, go and help my friend out with his basketball team. And basically when our bench, is like close to the sideline, I went over and to the middle of the jump ball. After the ball went up, I stuck to that sideline close to our bench. And all I did for the entire game was run up and down that sideline. I didn't even go towards the center court. I literally just stuck from corner to corner, like defense and offense, just ran from that corner up and down the sideline the entire game. I touched the ball 0 times because I said to them, do not pass me the ball. I touched the ball 0 times. After that game, I went back home to my mum and I was like, Mum, I had the time of my life. It was awesome. I got to run up and down. There was so much action going on. And I almost think from that moment, even though I touched the ball 0 times, I fell in love with basketball. And then I begged my mum to take me to the department store, get a basketball. So we went there. We got just a rubber $5 basketball. And I basically used that basketball from the moment I got home until it was like, late in the evening, to the point where the grip had gone. It had become so slippery now. And all of that had worn away to the binding and the string from underneath all of that, which was starting to come through. And I just loved everything about basketball. Just the feel of the grip in your hands and the release of the ball, and then listening to the ball go through the net and that snap, like that swish of the ball going through the net. Just everything about basketball I just fell in love with. So from that point forward, that's basically all I did. And I had just those horse blinders on. Like, that is all I wanted to do. Like, even going back to high school, all I would think about was just basketball now. And I had a couple friends that were in primary school that had been playing basketball, for a couple of years before we all went off to high school. And I remember these couple of guys, they were like best friends, and I was like, best friends in that group as well. But, I didn't play basketball. But they all gave each other the nickname of like Jordan, because this guy named Brad was like, the best kid in school. This other guy named Michael, he gave himself the name of Scottie Pippen. So these two were just like, a 1-2 punch at school, and, you couldn't beat these guys. Fast forward a couple of years into high school, I think it was the last year in high school. Our schools ended up playing against each other. And, I went to like a different school than what they did. And I knew that we were playing them in the future. So I dedicated all my time to just getting better because I wanted to show these two guys from primary school that I have not only reached their level, but now I've superseded their level. So we played them, and I ended up dropping like 36 or 38 against this guy, Brad, which was given the nickname Jordan back in primary school. And I remembered, all of those things from primary school, and I wanted to be better than him. So that was a proud moment for me, because they all started basketball when they were like 6 years old, 7 years old. So they'd already been playing basketball, for a number of years. And anything that I do, I strive to be one of the best at. So whether it was like when I was doing cricket or swimming, I wanted to have the best times in swimming. Cricket, I wanted to be the best bowler and get the most people out, that anybody had done. Piano, I wanted to be the best pianist, I could be. So when I started picking up basketball, it was the same thing. I just dedicated like all of my time to working on dribbling, shooting, trying to work out all these moves. So my determination to not only beat these guys from primary school, but to be the best that I could be, it just fuels my determination. So going back, even thinking about learning how to play basketball, my cousin who I'd mentioned earlier, who's about 12 years older than me, back in Australia at this point in time, when I was sort of like 15 years old, basketball wasn't that big of a sport. We had AFL, soccer, cricket. They were like the biggest sports for boys in Australia. So we had a thing in Australia called Game of the Week. And it was on Saturday nights, typically around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And it was only a 1 hour slot. So the game had been edited down to like about a 45, 50-minute game. My cousin would record the games on VHS. And like I said, it was just a game of the week. So I would use that VHS for the entire week, give it back. He would record the next game. I just watch that. And all these games where it had Barkley, Kevin Johnson, Hakeem, Jordan, Pippen, Orlando, the Supersonics, back then where Sean Kemp was there, Gary Payton. I would literally go frame by frame and break down what Jordan was doing, what Kemp was doing, what Barkley was doing, looking at Hakeem's footwork. And I would go frame by frame, rewind, frame by frame, and watch it, rewind, and just repeat that process until I feel like I had it down enough that at that point, then I'd go outside and I'd practice that move for like an hour or more, come back inside, watch the game a little bit more, and watch for some sort of like move or sweep or, one dribble pull up or something like that. Break it down frame by frame, and then I'd go back outside and work on that for like another hour. And that's how I taught myself how to play basketball, because everyone else in my family, my mum, she was a swimmer. My stepdad, he was into rugby, and my stepbrother, he was into rugby. So, and my 12-year-old, the cousin that's 12 years older than me, he was into cricket and AFL, so Australian rules football. So no one in my family had ever played basketball before. So no one knew how to really try and help me or what to do, or, hey, this is, how you shoot and you follow through and, the typical basketball techniques. No one in my family knew any of that. So I worked out everything myself. And a lot of that came from watching the VHS and breaking that down frame by frame, and then going outside and just trying it and just seeing what I could do. So that's how I got into basketball.
Man, that's an incredible story, Matt, when you think about just being a kid going from no exposure at all to the game to an experience where, as you said, you don't touch the ball, you're just running up and down the court And
Yeah.
all of a sudden it just sparks something inside you, and boom, now you're becoming this self-taught player. At what point in that development process did you get exposed to a coach? Like, even at the school level, when was the first experience that you had somebody actually, whether it was working with you in a practice setting, on a team setting, obviously the training side of it, like what you're doing now or what a lot of people are doing or what a lot of players get exposed to, that I'm sure in Australia wasn't that big at the time. And obviously even in the United States at that point, the training business hadn't taken off. So what was your first experience with formal coaching?
So I had just developed this love for basketball, and it works differently in Australia, where if you play for your school, it's more of a social sort of thing. You know, you sort of get some of your mates together, and you know, they don't really have tryouts, or we call them trials in Australia, for school basketball. It's just like, you know, you just sign up, and typically it's you and your mates who sort of get together and you play other schools, and it's more of a social sort of thing, like an after school activity that you do. If you want to get serious about basketball in Australia, you join a club. So I started just falling in love with basketball so much that there was a basketball club down the road called North Adelaide Rockets, and it was literally like a 5 or 6 minute drive from our house. And I was talking to my mom, and I was like, hey, can I go and play like district basketball? So fast forward there, I made a team, and it was the under 16s Division 4 team. So just like college over here, Division 1 is like the best kids. And in Australia, we've got 6 divisions. So Division 1 being the best, Division 6, basically newbies. So I ended up making under 16s Division 4. My coach, her name was Jean Baines. She was a previous multi-Olympian, and she played, I think the last Olympics she played for basketball in Australia was 1956 in the Olympics that were held in Melbourne. So she played for Australia. She was my coach, and she was very strict on a lot of different things. So she taught me a lot about discipline. And I remember one of the early examples of her discipline was, we played this game, we beat this team. I was doing really, really well that game. And after the game, I basically ran up to the score bench looking for the score sheet because I wanted to see how many points I got. They had already given the copy to Jean, like our head coach. So I was like, Jean, can I have a look at the score sheet? You know, I want to see how many points I got. And she basically stood there and looked me dead in the eyes and said, do not ever, ever ask how many points you scored ever again. This is a team game. It does not matter how many points you score. It's about the team and whether we either win together or we lose together. And from that point forward, I have never worried about my stats ever again. But her discipline during trainings and the level of perfection that she required from every single player was a real eye-opener for me. Coming from the small, 18 months, 2 years experience I'd sort of had, going to this like regimented Olympian type style training was just next level. And that's where I think I learned a lot of habits when it comes to discipline and understanding repetition and understanding fundamentals and how important it is to have that foundation and those fundamentals, because now that allows things to just open up in your game so much. So that was probably my very first experience coming into such a high level of training like that.
Well, it sounds like you were very, very fortunate in getting an opportunity to play for her as your first coach, and just all the things that you talked about in terms of fundamentals and discipline, and having that instilled in you in your first experience with a formal basketball setting. I'm sure that proved to be invaluable to you as you continued to move on as a player. So walk us through the remainder of your time as a player and then how getting into the potential of being a coach, how did that start to get onto your radar? How did you start thinking about that? So walk us through the rest of your playing career and then how that led to you eventually thinking, hey, maybe I want to get into coaching.
Yeah, sure. So next year I played again, under 16s Division 4, went to the trials or tryouts again. I was expecting, maybe moving up a division because of the work I'd put in, not knowing, much about the politics of basketball and just what it really took to sort of move up in divisions. So I stuck in Division 4 again for another year. That, just stayed as it is. I developed to the point where I became the main scorer and the main player on this team. Next year, the following year, again, I'm moving up into under 18s now because you play 2 years in each age category. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. The couple years I've had under Jean, and her tutelage now, I feel like that's pretty good. That's going to set me up for moving up. After these tryouts, it was back in the day where you would get a letter in the mail, so they didn't have email, back then. So you go to tryouts and then you're waiting, about a week or two to get the results in the mail. You get a letter, you open it up. Congratulations, you've made under 18s Division 4. That was a bit of a heartbreak. I was like, man, that's unreal. I was like, okay, I can start there, not a problem. And I'll show them that when we go to our first training, that maybe we need to jig things around a little bit and I can take one of the spots from the Division 3 because Division 1 and Division 2 train together, Division 3, Division 4 train together, and then Division 5 and Division 6 train together, just so they have enough numbers to do team drills and, run through things like that. So that year, new coach, new players, I'm feeling pretty good. Had another pretty good, successful year. Unfortunately, I didn't move up. Go to tryouts again next year. I'm thinking, man, like I've had another really good year. I'm going to, go to tryouts. I'm going to give it everything I got. Following tryouts, I'm like excited to get this letter. I'm thinking, man, I think I've done so well. I want to aim for Division 2 because they get all the under 18s together, right? All the under 16s and everybody, all goes to tryouts together. So you've got all the Division 1 players right through to all the Division 6 players. So I feel like I proved myself enough that maybe I could go, if things worked out, Division 2. If not, surely I've locked in Division 3. Letter comes, I rip it open. I'm like excited to see what it is. Congratulations, you've made under 18s Division 4. You've got to be kidding me. After all the work that I've put in and the successful seasons I had before that, and at the end of every season, they do like trophy awards and all that sort of stuff. So in under 16s, I got the MVP for the team. Under 18s, that first season, I got MVP, best league player. And I was thinking, man, how did I get Division 4 when I was the best player on the team and I got like MVP of the league as well? And I was just like, how could that be? So that fueled more fire. It's almost like I'm one of those people that if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to find a way, no matter what it takes, to prove someone wrong that it's achievable. I play throughout the entire year. During multiple trainings, I am tearing up some of the Division 3 players. And I'm looking over at my coach on the sideline like, can you see what I'm doing here? Like, and I'm looking at the Division 3 coach like, hey, like I'm showing up your guys. Like I'm proving to you that I should be on your team. There is so much frustration because they just will not give me the time of day to even be looked at going to Division 3. Tournaments in Australia work a little bit differently. Like they're typically for longer weekends. So we don't have, tournaments every weekend. We have like Australia Day tournaments, which are like 3-day tournaments, and that's January 26th sort of weekend. We have like Easter weekend tournaments, Queen's birthday weekend tournaments, Christmas tournaments. So they don't come around, a whole lot. There was one tournament, we traveled from Adelaide over interstate to a city called Irimple. And this was like Irimple tournament was known for like being good. Teams from all over Australia, come and play in Irimple. We go there. I have such a really good start to the tournament. There's been a couple days playing. We're playing 3-4, games a day. I'm playing really, really well. I'm talking to my coach. Like, can you see how well I'm doing? I'm like, why can't someone see that I can play Division 3? Like, I can play with those guys even more. And I remember it was after a game, everyone had packed up their bags. Everyone sort of like dispersed. And I stayed back and I talked to the coach, and I literally just like, a bottle that was about to burst. I had so much frustration from a lack of understanding about like what was going on and why wasn't I being looked at? Why wasn't I being moved up to Division 3? I just let my coach have it, and I was furious and angry, and I was like, you've got to know something. Like, tell me why I'm stuck here in Division 4. Basically, at that point, at the Irimple tournament, he came out and said to me, we know you're talented and you're skilled, but I've talked to the other coaches and we've agreed that we're going to hold you back into Division 4 so that you can really hone your craft and really excel at mastering the skills against sort of maybe lesser skilled kids and kids who are a little bit slower than Division 3 and Division 2. And it was like a double-edged sword where on one hand, it was almost like a relief to hear that. But on the other hand, it was almost like pulling my hair out because I'm like, why didn't you tell me this before? Like, I would have been okay with that if you had just told me. So that, that made me feel better that they're holding me back to develop me. So I was like, okay, that's good. I can understand that. I've had my couple years in under 18s. Now it's time for under 20s. And I've got to a point where I've like given everything to basketball. I've given my blood, sweat, and tears and felt like I've devoted my life to basketball for these 4 or 5 years, that I've been playing now. And we've moved up to the under 20s. I go to the under 20s tryouts, and I'm at a point now where I am thinking, do I hang up the sneakers because maybe just basketball just isn't for me? Or do I try and push through and keep going? So I sort of did like a half and half where the under 20s tryouts came, and I told myself, I am going to give it my absolute everything. I'm going to sprint harder than I've ever sprinted before. You do your 17s, in a minute. I'm going to try and make sure that I get well under a minute for this. I'm going to play defense the fastest I can play defense, move my feet. I'm going to sprint, down on recovery. When, if there's a fast break, I'm going to make sure that I'm the first person back on defense. I'm going to jump as high as I can to get the rebounds. I made a promise to myself. I'm going to do absolutely everything in my humanly possible way to give it my everything. And if it doesn't work out, I can walk away knowing that I gave it everything that I possibly could. There was no questions asked. I can hang up the sneakers and go, okay, basketball just didn't work out for me.
Coaches, Game Changer is making your game film more valuable than ever. New this season to Game Changer, Film Room allows team staff to analyze full game videos, add comments to specific moments, and quickly share feedback with other coaches, team members, or families. The #1 youth sports app automatically skips downtime in the game film, condensing event video into active play so you can focus on the moments that matter. The best part? It's completely free for coaches. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android and take your coaching to the next level with Film Room on Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect.
After these tryouts, same thing. We get the letter in the mail, right? There's that, about a fortnight before you get the letter. I am now at a point where I am dreading getting this letter because every single year it's Division 4, Division 4, Division 4. The letter came. I remember getting out of that letterbox. I took it inside and I put it on the kitchen counter. I'm looking at this letter. I can't bring myself to open it. The heartbreak that I can remember feeling of what that letter was going to share and tell me was just killing me. 3 days went by. I had to convince myself we have to just rip the Band-Aid off. And I remember coming home, looking at the letter, and just thinking, I can't delay this anymore. Like, I need to know which direction I'm going. I open the letter, expecting Division 4. I open it up, read it. It says, congratulations, you've made a spot in the Division 1 and 2 squad. At that point, it was a mix of so many feelings, like joy, excitement, disbelief, but also like uncertainty, because I'm like, this surely can't be for me. I think someone's mistyped my name and put me in the wrong category. It had the date and the time on there to show up for the first training session. So I was like, I'll go, I guess, and I'll find out whether this is actually right. Expecting this to not be right. I take my letter with me. I rock up just a little bit earlier than everybody else because I didn't want the embarrassment of showing up to something where I didn't feel like I deserved to be or where I was going to be welcomed. So I showed up a little bit early to give myself enough time to leave if that wasn't the right place for me. The Division 1 coach was named Paul. I showed him the letter and I was like, Paul, I know we've never met before. My name's Matt. I received the letter. It says I'm supposed to be here for this training. Can you confirm whether this is actually true or not? And without any doubt, he said to me, yes, I want you here. You are supposed to be here. And again, I just paused and tried to take that in for a minute, thinking, is this guy thinking that this is me? Like, is he thinking that I am who he thinks I am? Because I've only ever played Division 4. That's when he told me, in the basketball arena, you've got your one court, all the chairs, go up to like the bleachers, up to the nosebleed sections up there. He told me that when he was doing his scouting, he was sitting up towards the very back of the stadium chairs, up the seating up there. He heard me communicate the loudest of anybody. He heard me communicate on defense and offense, and he had never seen or heard of me before. But during those tryouts, he became aware of who I was purely because of my defensive communication being so loud that I drew attention to myself, not knowing that he was even up there. And he's like, in Division 1, we play a lot of team defense and we rely a lot on communication. And he's like, that is why you're here. So from that point on, I felt like I had a place to be. So I played out my under 20s, my first season under 20s. I did okay. I learned a lot. There was a lot of bumps through the road, and Tom was our point guard, and he took me under his wing and tried to help me understand how to be a point guard and how to run things at a Division I level. Even though I had players that were supportive like Tom, there were other players on the team who would literally walk into training and just stare me down, just believing that I should not be there. And there's one player in particular that it was week after week, month after month, that he would just stare me down, not pass me the ball, knock me around when I am on the court, just because he thought I didn't deserve to be there. That, again, helps me prove to other people, you might not think I belong, but I'm going to prove to you that I do. So understanding that there's only one more season left of under 20s, I talked to my coach about making a bit of a change. And after you play under 20s, most people quit basketball after that, because after that, it becomes a men's league now. So now you're going into the men's league, which is more like the 21 to 25 year olds. So it's a lot of sort of like, college age type players, and I talked to my coach and I said, I want to try and take a leap ahead of everybody else at my age level. I talked to him about going to the men's coach and talking to him about me wanting to play men's. There was one Sunday afternoon, and it was following our training. Everybody had cleared out. The men's coach was down there, and they weren't training for about another hour or so, but on that day, he just came early. And I saw him sitting over there, going through his papers, and I thought, you know what? This is a moment in time that I need to take advantage of. And I was terrified to go up to him and talk to him, because he had never, I'd never talked to him before. I'd never even really knew who this guy was. I just knew through just recent learnings who the actual, Division I coach was for the men's basketball. And I always made a promise to myself that I'll try and take advantage of every single moment that I have. And I sat there shaking in my boots, him sitting over there, and I'm like, again, this is a similar situation where I just have to rip the Band-Aid off like I did with that letter. I have to go and find out. I went over and I talked to him. I introduced myself to him, and I said, I would love to just come and train with a Division I, Division II men's teams. I'm not expecting any court time or anything like that. I just want to get better. And by, I'm not going to get as good by still sticking in under 20s. I need to play against people who are bigger, stronger, faster than me. Without hesitation, he's like, I know who you are. Come along. We got training tomorrow. This is the time and place. Come train. I was like, I cannot believe he just accepted that and took me on. I did not expect that at all. I was preparing myself for the rejection and, who are you and why do you think you deserve to be here? And, lots of no thanks. But that moment, again, I was filled with so much joy and excitement to be like, oh my God, someone is willing to give me a chance. So I went there, and for the better part of 8 or 9 months, all I did was just train with these guys. And I got knocked around, because, I'm just a sort of skinny point guard that, I didn't do a lot of weight training sort of back in those days. So I go there, these guys are so fast, so good, so strong, but I just kept coming back. It's almost like, when you see Allen Iverson, get knocked down, and he just comes straight back at you. It's almost one of those people that almost crave, getting hit and then coming back and go, I'm coming back at you. So about 8 or 9 months went past, and then the coach offered me a uniform to play in the men's Division 1 reserves. So from there, I ended up playing the Division 1 reserves, working my way up to playing Division 1. And I actually got recruited by another team that their point guard was leaving to go play professional basketball. And he asked me to basically, if I would be interested in coming over and playing point guard for their team. So I believe I'm pretty respectful. I called a meeting at the end of one of the trainings for the current club that I was training at, and I got everyone together, and I basically told them, I've got something I want to share with you guys, and I want it to come from me. I don't want any he say, she say, anything like that, around the club or around the league. I want you guys to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And I told them about the opportunity, and I said, if you guys want me to stay here, I will stay. But they've asked me, and I'm interested in going over there. And with the coach, which I talked to earlier, and got his approval, and I had the respect of the teammates, and I wanted to show them respect and tell them about the opportunity that I had. And most of them were like really excited for me, and they were like, yeah, 100%, like that's an opportunity. It is going to suck that you leave, and obviously we would want you here, but if you're getting an opportunity to go and run this Division 1 team as a point guard, they're like, you've got to take that opportunity. So I took that opportunity. From there, basically the professional team in Adelaide, called the Adelaide 36ers, they were holding a lot of tryouts because they were going to get like some development players, and they were looking for like new players, and they held different tryouts at different locations to give like a lot of different players opportunities. You were only supposed to register for one location. I was a little bit cheeky and registered for 2 locations. I don't think anyone ever picked up on the fact that I went to 2 tryouts, because I was just so desperate to become a professional player that I'm sort of bending the rules a little bit, because this is my dream now. My dream is to play professional. That's my goal. That's my dream, to do that. So I remember going to both of these tryouts. Long story short, I got a letter in the mail from the Adelaide 36ers, and I still have it today. And my mother has it in her filing cabinet. And it's a congratulatory letter from the 36ers saying, congratulations, you've been selected as one of the development players for the 36ers. So again, I was just like, yes, like someone has given me an opportunity. Like I'm starting to edge that a little bit closer to my dream. So I ended up training, with the 36ers as like a development player. Then the worst thing that you could imagine at this point in time, I'm driving to the hoop on a fast break. We are going 1-on-1. And funny enough, the guy who was guarding me, he actually played on our team the year before. And him and I, we would always clash heads. We would butt heads at training constantly. The season began. We played some games. Our team got the rebound, outlet it to me at the half court. This other guy who was on our team, he was like basically at center court, and we're both sprinting towards the basket. It's like becoming like a race, right? It's a 1-on-1 battle. It gets to about where the foul line is. I've got the ball in my left hand, He's on my right hip. He's got his arm bar on my hip. And I know I'd put a lot of work in the off season. He did not. He had put on a lot of weight. He had slowed down. So I think basketball was sort of like ending for him. And I thought, one quick, good, hard push, and I'm going to get in front of him and I'm going to finish. At that point in time, he nudged me. My quad went to my left. My shin going down to my foot went to my right. And my knee hyperextended backwards at the same time. Snap. My ACL torn in half. I'm laying on the ground like with adrenaline, not knowing what the heck is going on. The game continues on, and we've got all these 6'8", 6'10", 7-foot guys that are coming down now, rebounding and playing offense. I'm laying on my back on the sideline, and it was actually the opposition's doctor, the team doctor, who got her daughter to run up the stairs to the front office of the stadium that we were playing at and call an ambulance, because the refs didn't stop the game. They just let it keep going. And my team knew, I talked to them after, my team knew the moment that I didn't get back up, they knew something was wrong, because they knew every time I hit the ground, I'm straight back up. But there's one time I was down on the ground, they knew something was wrong. 5 or 10 minutes go by. There's a hospital just down the road from the stadium. No one's there yet. The opposition's team doctor got her daughter to run back upstairs again to find out, where the ambulance is at. The lady in the front office tells her, "My apologies, I forgot. I'll call an ambulance now." I'm like, are you kidding me? You forgot to call an ambulance? And then within a blink of an eye, they were there, took me over to the hospital. And by this time, it's about midnight now. And my mother's come to meet me there. My girlfriend, she's there. My girlfriend at the time, she's there. And you know how mothers have this sixth sense of things, right? They've always just got this unique sense for picking up on things. This doctor comes in, moves my knee around a little bit and goes, "Oh, I think you sort of just bruised your knee." He's like, "Maybe just stay off it for about 6 weeks, and then sort of get back into playing after that." My mother's just like, things just don't seem right. So anyway, we go home. With the 36ers, we have a place called Sports Med, and that's where all the professional surgeons and doctors and nutritionists and dietitians, that's where, you can get access to all these guys. So we called up, made an appointment, went in there first thing in the morning. I'm sitting in this room. This doctor walks in. He was barely even in there for a few seconds. Looks at my knee and he's like, "You've torn your ACL." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You haven't even looked at my knee. You haven't even done anything." So anyway, he picks it up. He holds my knee and puts his hand under my calf and turns my leg clockwise where my shin is. And he's like, "Your leg should not twist like this. It's supposed to bend this way. It is not supposed to rotate this way. That's how I know you've done your ACL." I was like, man, I'm not sure what that means, but I was like, what's the recovery going to be? Surgery, this. Hearing surgery just frightened the life out of me. And he was basically like, this is going to be about a 12-month recovery. That was a stab in the heart. I've never had 12 minutes away from basketball since I first started playing, let alone 12 months. I was like, oh my God, this is just going to tear me up. And so I made a joke to him. And I was like, the other doctor we saw, he said it's going to be about 6 weeks. Can I take that? I was like, I'd much rather that. But he's like, that's not going to happen. So, had my surgery. Took me 14 months to recover before I could get back on the court and actually just start running up and down the court in a straight line, not even zigzagging, putting pressure on anything like that. Fast forward, a little bit more. I get an opportunity to go play overseas in England. So I go play overseas in England. An opportunity comes over to go play in Germany. So I skipped over to Germany. Things didn't work out over there, so I went back to England. Spent a little bit more time in England. Then had an opportunity to go to Canada. So I played in Canada for a while, and then made my way down to America from there. So I wanted to go to the Summer League down in Las Vegas and try out for the NBA. So that didn't work out. And then from there, that's sort of basically where the playing career had sort of like started to wrap up a little bit. I had met my current wife in Mexico. And so she was living in Seattle. I'm living up in Vancouver, up in Canada. And, it's only like about a 3-hour drive. So I would go visit her. She would come and visit me. Basically, it got to a point where like, are you going to move to Canada or am I going to move to America? So it was easier for me to pack up my life and move to America. So we did that. Kid you not, I basically crossed the border just before COVID happens. So I get into America and they're like, basically, welcome to America, stay home. So, I'm like, is this how you treat everybody who's coming to America? Is this how you treat all your new arrivals? So now that we're living through COVID, everything's dead. Like nothing's going on. No one's working. I'm waiting for my green card to come in. So trying to think of like how I can earn like a bit of cash. We ended up running into one of my wife's friends in Safeway. And, hey, what have you been doing like during COVID? She's with her 6-year-old boy and she's like, we just got back, from the basketball courts. I've been trying to help him stay active, teach him a little bit of basketball. My wife is like, man, that's awesome. Matt knows so much about basketball. Maybe we could work something out. Not a problem. I basically go and train him and just help him with like basic, coordination and, fundamentals and just the very, very basics. His mother loved it, started telling everybody about it. So word of mouth starts, coming my direction, and all these people start reaching out. Hey, can you train my son? Can you train my daughter? Can you do this? So I started thinking, man, maybe I could turn this into like a bit of a business. So I started with just a small handful of kids. 3 months later, I've got 72 kids on the books. And I was like, wow, this is just blown up to something that I did not even expect. So basically from there, I started training all these kids, start looking up drills, and, I didn't really know anything about, NBA trainers or even training as a business. I'm just trying to think of all the drills that I did and what I did to work on my fundamentals and, what I did to develop myself. And that's what I started, working with these kids. So I started trying to think of who else is out there that I could, get some drills and skills and stuff from. I ended up becoming friends with Drew Hanlon, who's, very well-known NBA skills trainer. And long story short, we become, pretty good mates, and I learned a lot from him. And now, I go down to Portland and, I help run clinics down there where it's just him and me. And, I've been to his retreats in Las Vegas. I've been down to help, work out all his NBA players down in LA. And from there, I basically got in touch with Dave Severance, who I think now works for Indiana, John Townsend, who's an NBA shooting coach. So he's become a mentor of mine, especially when it comes to like shooting. So he's basically told me everything that I know about shooting, you're going to know about shooting. I've talked with Phil Handy. So that's how basically I went from playing basketball and went through all of my experience to wrapping up my playing experience and getting into training and skills training. And that wasn't even something that I'd even thought of or dreamt of doing. It just so happened to be COVID and nothing was going on, and it sort of just spiked from there. And just with my love and obsession with basketball, now that's all I do is watch film, study, learn shooting techniques from Drew, from John, and really understand the nuances that it takes to become like a really good shooter. So yeah, that's basically my story of starting basketball and how I got into training players.
So Matt, I think what we've just discovered here is that part one of the Matt Mann podcast is the story of your playing career and how you got into training. And part two that we're going to have you back for is to dive further into the training techniques, the relationships with the guys that you just mentioned, and talk to you a little bit more about that experience. But before we get out tonight, I want to give you a chance to share, how can people get in touch with you, reach out to you, whether you want to share email, website, social media, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then after you do that, I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Yeah. A lot of players reach out to me on Instagram. So it's at Skills Within Hoops. You can also email me at info@skillswithinhoops.com. There's the website, skillswithinhoops.com. So you can reach out to me anywhere through those channels.
Perfect. Matt, cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule tonight to jump on with us. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.